Today we're going to continue our work with two variable inequalities, but today we're going to look at graphing two variable inequalities. So let's go ahead and start by looking at our four different inequality symbols. Our first one is greater than. So we've got y is greater than x. So if we were to graph the line y is equal to x, that line would look like this. It would be that 45-degree angle, goes through the origin with a slope of 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Now, if we're going to graph the inequality y is greater than x, instead of just graphing a solid line and leaving it at that, what we're going to do is we're going to graph a dashed line. So we're still going to have our arrow indicating it goes on and on forever. But we're going to have that line be dashed like this. And what that's going to indicate to us is that this line is not actually part of the solution. Because, for instance, if we were to look at a point, let's say we'll look at this point right here of 2, 2, and we substituted into our inequality, we could see that 2 is not greater than 2. So this line is not actually part of our solution. So we're going to represent that with a dotted line to say that everything up until that line is part of the solution, but the line itself is not. Now, we need to look and see, all right, which points are parts of the solution. So if the line is not, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say, all right, this is greater than. So we're going to highlight everything above that line. So we're going to highlight all of that to indicate that everything above the line is part of our solution. And we can go ahead and test that as well. We can go ahead and pull some points out. We can say, all right, what about the point 0, 4? Is 4 greater than 0? Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we know that the things above that line are all part of that solution. What about 4, 0? Well, our y value is 0. Our x value is 4. 0 is not greater than 4, so we can see that all of those numbers below the line are not part of that solution. So when we're graphing a greater than symbol, such as y is greater than x, we're going to have a dashed line, and the shading is going to be above the line. So now let's go ahead and move on to our second inequality here, greater than or equal to. So greater than or equal to, once again, we're going to start out by first finding our line to begin with. And our line is y equals x. So we're going to graph that line y equals x, which once again, we've got a slope of 1. It goes through our y-intercept. So we've got our line here. This time, however, we have y is greater than or equal to. So instead of our line being dashed, we're going to say, all right, we know that this line could be part of the solution. So we're going to put this as a solid line. And we can test the points here as well. We could say, all right, that same point 2, 2 is 2 greater than or equal to 2. And that is true, so that's showing us that that solid line is part of the solution. So then after we have our line found out, we're going to go ahead and highlight everything above the line to indicate that everything above that line is part of our solution. So looking at what we have here, we have our line is solid, and our shading is above the line. Now, less than is going to be very similar to our greater than. We're once again going to have that line y equals x, so we're going to graph our line y equals x. Our line of y equals x is going to start at our origin, and once again just be a diagonal line. that goes through that origin, that diagonal line with a slope of 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Now once again, that line is not part of our solution. So since that line is not part of our solution, we're going to have a dashed line. We'll only have a solid line if it's or equal to. So we're going to have a dashed line. Let's go ahead and draw that dashed line in. All right. But this time our y values are less than x. So instead of highlighting above our line, we're going to highlight all of the stuff below our line. So we'll go ahead and shade that in below our line. And that's going to show us that all of the values, all of the points below that line are part of our solution. So we can go ahead and test our points. We have the point 4, 4, 0. So let's go ahead and substitute in. 0 is less than 4. That is true. If we checked the point up here of 4, 0, we would have 4 is less than 0, and that is not true. So that's showing us that all of the points above that line are not part of the solution. Our last line that we have is y is less than or equal to 0. So once again, we're going to draw that line, y equals x. That line y equals x, we're going to make a solid line because it is y is less than or equal to x. And then we're going to make our shading go below because it is less than. So y is less than. So we'll go ahead and shade below that line. And that's going to be our 4 different inequalities and what those look like on our graph.